Hi guys, welcome to 4 Strong and Growing. My name is Alexa and I am 39 weeks pregnant with my third baby right now. And that means that I am gearing up for labor. She can come any minute now. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about how I'm preparing for labor and how I cope with labor pains. I've had 2 previous vaginal deliveries and I didn't have an epidural with either of them. So I want to go over how I did that, how I coped with the pain, and what I'm planning to do this time. So if that sounds like something you want to know about, just keep on watching. Before we get started, I just have a couple disclaimers. So my first disclaimer is that I've never actually taken a childbirth class. Well, I technically did take one. It was like this free online class and it was kind of sketchy, to be honest. The only thing that they really taught us is to hold ice and then try to deal with that pain. I didn't exactly think that that was a great comparison. And then they were like, yeah, if you actually want like the real tips, pay to come to this other class. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is. So I'm not really counting that as a childbirth class. And this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I feel like you don't really need to go to a childbirth class. I'm sure they're helpful for a lot of people. At the same time, I trust my body to do what it's meant to do. And I feel like as long as you are in tune with your body and you're listening to your body, then everything's gonna be okay. And you don't really need a class to teach you how to do that. My next disclaimer is that everybody has a different pain tolerance and mine tends to be a little bit higher. So I have tattoos. I used to have a lot of piercings. I don't have any piercings anymore. I actually used to have giant ear gauges that were almost 2 inches. I've done a lot of things that most people would consider to be very painful, and I've done it relatively easily. So that might come into play as to why it was easier for me maybe than other people to birth 2 babies without an epidural. I just don't want to make it sound like it's easier than it actually is. For me, it was doable. For some people, they really express that it is just not doable for them to deliver a baby without an epidural. And I don't want to discredit anyone's feelings because everybody has a different pain tolerance. So I just want to put that out there. So my general philosophy when it comes to birthing babies is that we women are literally built to birth our babies. So that should give you the most confidence in the world. That's kind of the basis of my mindset whenever I'm going into a delivery, that I'm literally meant to do this. And that doesn't mean that there won't be or can't be any complications, but I just know that anything that is thrown my way, I can handle it. And the last disclaimer that I have is that I generally try to avoid medical intervention whenever possible. In my opinion, a lot of the times with medical interventions, they can help one thing, but then cause a whole host of different problems. So epidurals are a really good example of this. I've heard so many stories of women getting epidurals and it's only working on one side of their body. So they feel like no pain on the left side, but they could feel everything on the right side. So the epidural is only working halfway. And then they have to be catheterized with a urinary catheter because they can't get out of the bed to walk around. And then they're having trouble peeing when they finally get the catheter taken out. And then they have these major headaches due to the epidural. So while it did help one thing, it caused a whole bunch of other problems. And it's not just epidurals. I feel like that can happen with a lot of medical interventions. And sometimes it just makes me think, was it worth it to get that temporary pain relief when all that other stuff happened? I don't necessarily have an answer, but like I said, I tend to lean towards less medical intervention. So now I want to get into my actual tips for how I deal with labor pains. Okay, my first tip is actually to get your logistical checklist completely done. If you have your to-do list done, then that mental load is taken off of you and you don't have to worry about it when you're in labor. So this checklist could look something like packing your hospital bag. Don't forget to put your birth plan in your hospital bag. Do a dry run to the hospital. This is my first time delivering a baby in a hospital here. I had both of my other babies in New York and then we just moved to Utah. So we did a dry run to the hospital, which was a good idea because actually in my head for some reason I thought it was this other hospital and I would have been so confused when we were driving there. Like I would have been like, Matt, I think you're going to the wrong hospital, and it would have just caused me stress. So luckily we did a dry run. We know where the labor and delivery section of the hospital is, so we got that figured out. Another thing is to pre-register with your hospital, which I'm being kind of naughty telling you guys to do that when I haven't done that. But to be fair, when I went to the hospital, I was like, hey, hey, do you have like a packet that I can fill out? Or like, can I sit down and pre-register with someone in person? And they gave me a card and they were like, you have to call this number. If you know me, you know that I hate phone calls. So I have not called to pre-register yet. So I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. I'm calling myself out here, okay? But generally, my advice is to pre-register so that you don't have to worry about it when you get there. Make arrangements for babysitters, people to watch your pets. Install your car seat, of course. And one thing that I learned recently that I didn't know about car seats was that they actually expire. Make sure you check the manufacturer date on your car seat. Sometimes the expiration date is next to it, or sometimes you just reference the manufacturer date. Usually car seats will expire like 6 or 7 years after that. Some car seats expire later than that. Mine is a Safety First Grow and Go, I think it's called, car seat, and that's good for 10 years. It's made with like reinforced steel or something like that, which makes it last longer. Just double check that, and then also make sure that the weight rating is within the range that you'll need. So some car seats will say the lowest weight is 7 pounds. So then if you have a 6 pound, 13-ounce baby, you're not gonna be able to put them in your car seat. So just double check those two things on your car seat. This one might be overboard, but I also put a towel and a pair of incontinence underwear in my car just in case. So if my water breaks while I'm out, I have a pair of incontinence underwear to put on, and then the towel is just in case I were to give birth in the car, which hopefully that will not happen. And just in case you find yourself in that situation and you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do? If you feel the urge to push, have who's ever driving pull over to the side of the road, call 911, and you deliver the baby. Have the baby, put them on your chest, leave the umbilical cord alone, get a towel, or if you don't have a towel, like a piece of clothing or something, put it over the baby, keep them warm, wait for the emergency crew to get there, and then make your way to the hospital, just in case. Okay, that's everything that I have on my logistical checklist. So next, let's go into actually dealing with the labor pains. So there are a few stages of labor. The first stage of labor is when you're dilating from a 0 to 6 centimeters, and this is the longest stage of labor. So my advice is to labor at home for as long as you can. In my opinion, being in the comfort of your home helps you labor quicker, and it's just mentally more enjoyable to be in a space that you're comfortable with. So keep moving around your house by doing simple household chores and tasks, and make sure that you're eating small meals and keeping yourself hydrated. Once you get to the hospital, they might not let you eat anymore, which is so crazy. I feel like this is sort of going out of fashion, slowly but surely in the United States. In other countries, like in the UK, overseas, they allow women to eat in labor, which seems like common sense because labor is a lot of work. And if you don't have the fuel to do that work, it seems like a little bit of a contraindication. But still, in a lot of hospitals in the US, they will not let you eat once you get there and you're in labor. And that's another reason why I suggest staying home until you're about 6 centimeters dilated. Now, it's kind of hard to know when you're 6 centimeters dilated and when you should actually make your way to the hospital, because unless you have someone doing a cervical exam on you, you're not going to know how dilated you are. But from my previous experience, to me, 6 centimeters felt like another checkpoint. Once you reach 6 centimeters, you're going into active labor. This, to me, felt like the contractions bumped up, they were lasting longer, and they were more intense. So my advice would be just to look out for that sort of checkpoint where you're like, oh, okay, this is just a little bit more intense now. Maybe we should go. Obviously, if you live further away from a hospital, you might not want to wait until you're in that much pain. Also, if you do want to get an epidural, you shouldn't wait until you're 6 centimeters to get to the hospital. You should probably go to the hospital when you're closer to a 4 or a 5. If you want your epidural, err on the side of going earlier. If not, I say hit that checkpoint, feel that the contractions are more intense, and then make your way to the hospital. So now you're in active labor. Active labor is from 6 centimeters to transition, which is when you reach 8 centimeters. During active labor, my plan is just to try different things and see what feels right and listen to my body. So I know from previous experience that I like laboring in the tub. It makes you feel weightless, which is so nice when you have this like giant belly, and I'm feeling like a hippopotamus. So to go in the water and just have that sort of relief feels really nice. Also, it's warm. It's just relaxing as you can be when you're in active labor. If you don't have a tub, tub. You can also go into the shower and take a warm shower. Same idea. I also might try listening to music this time. I haven't done that either of the last 2 times. I'm not sure if I'll like it or not. Sometimes silence is better. Sometimes people like music. Again, it's a little bit of trial and error. Basically, keep it moving. Movement is going to help that baby descend down deeper into your pelvis, so you can roll your hips on a birthing ball. You can get a squat bar and do some squats. You can just lay on the bed if you want to lay on the bed. That's what I did last time, and it was a pretty quick labor. I was only in the hospital for 2 hours before he was born, and I came in at like 6 to 7 centimeters. Really, it is whatever you want to do. And it might not be the same for every pregnancy. In my first pregnancy, I was in the tub the whole time, basically, until it was time to push. And then for my second delivery, I stayed in the bed the whole time and just laid on my side, and that was it. That's all I wanted to do. This time I'm thinking that I want to try a little bit more movement, maybe some different positions. But again, we'll see in the moment, just whatever feels right. You really just have to listen to your body. I'm hoping that the movement will help keep my body feeling loose, because tensing up is actually the opposite of what you want to do. Even though it feels like that's what you're supposed to do, it's like a natural reaction to that pain to tense up. It's working against your contractions. You want to let those contractions push your baby down deeper into your pelvis. With every contraction, it's pushing that baby down. And if you can get a mental image of your baby descending lower every single time and kind of loosen up and just let that happen, I think that will help you labor even faster. That's the mindset that I'm going in with this time. Also, another mindset that helps, if you don't want to get an epidural and you're trying to motivate yourself, kind of seems like obvious advice, but act like there's no other choice. Just pretend epidurals don't exist. You can't have one. And sometimes when you ask for an epidural, sometimes they literally say no. For whatever reason, maybe you're too far along, you can't sit still. There could be a whole host of reasons, but sometimes they actually do say no. You need to be prepared to hear no and not completely freak out. Like I said in the beginning, your body is literally meant to birth your baby, and you can definitely do it without an epidural. Women have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. Act like that's your only choice. It could be your only choice. In reality, it really could be your only choice. Once you get the idea of it out of your head and you have a clear plan, like, okay, I just have to do this, that helps me personally. The next stage of labor is called transition, and this is the shortest part of labor, luckily, because it is the most painful. So this is when you're dilating from 8 to 10 centimeters. Transition is characterized by even more intense contractions and longer contractions. It's also characterized by the woman feeling like she can't do it anymore, she needs to give up, maybe someone who is dead set on not having an epidural, asking for an epidural, things like this. If you have that feeling of, I can't do this anymore, you could be this close to having your baby. So it's it's like a bad thing and a good thing. That means that you are so close to the finish line. And I did this last time with my last delivery. I got to, I think it was 8 centimeters, and I asked not for an epidural, but for analgesics through my IV, and they said no.
I asked for IV drugs at the very end when I was 9 centimeters, and they said it was too late. And then I just had to muscle through it. So this was truly an all-natural birth.
They probably knew that I was in transition, and you don't necessarily want to be giving morphine or things like that so close to delivery, because it can affect the breathing of the baby if you give it that close to delivery. At the time, I didn't know that's why they said no. So yeah, transition is no joke, but it means that you are so close to the end. Again, my tips: have that mindset that there's literally no other option. Remember that you're really, really close to the end. Also keep in mind that most of your labor is spent in between your contractions, not actually contracting. Rest between your contractions as much as you can. Enjoy that rest. And then make sure you are listening to your body for when you get this incredible urge to push. As soon as you feel that urge to push, get medical staff right away. Have your partner do it, whatever. Ring the little bell, get them in there right away. And in my opinion, you've now done it. That's the hardest part. Getting through the transition is the hardest part. In my opinion, pushing is not as painful as the contractions that happen before pushing. My tips for pushing, and I sound like a broken record, is to listen to your body. I feel like a lot of people think you're just supposed to push as hard as you possibly can a bunch of times in a row. I remember my body telling me, don't push with all your might. And I feel like that might have helped me not tear. The contractions are pushing your baby out. You're also pushing with those contractions. You're working together. You don't need to push as hard as humanly possible. Just push enough to work with the contractions to slowly get the baby out. Getting the baby out faster is not necessarily better because that can lead to tearing. If the baby like shoots out of you, you're at a higher risk of tearing. And that's kind of where the ring of fire comes into play. Now, I've never felt the ring of fire. In case you don't know what that is, it's when the baby's head is completely stretching you like this. The head is about to come out, but it's not out yet, and it has to rest fully crowned between a contraction. So for like 1 or 2 minutes, the head could just be sitting there. And so many people have experienced a burning sensation when that happens. I remember my son's head sitting there, but it didn't sting. So I don't know what happened with that. I just got lucky. But a lot of people will call that the ring of fire. It sounds like a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because it's giving your body the time to stretch out. I didn't tear with him. In my birth vlog, I was like, I'm so surprised I didn't tear because his head was like right there for a whole 2 minutes in between the contractions.
I feel much more independent this time. I feel like I definitely needed more help from the nurses last time around, but maybe it's because I tore worse last time and I had a few stitches down there, and this time I ended up not tearing at all, which I'm so happy about, but I'm also surprised about. I can't believe I didn't tear at all, especially because his head was halfway out of me at one point, just sitting there, stretching everything.
I didn't realize that helps you not tear. If you feel the ring of fire, just remember it's only going to last 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and it's helping you not tear. And it means that the head is probably going to come out in the next push. So just remember, you're doing it. You're so close. And my last piece of advice is just to remember that you're a superstar. Literally. Literally a magician. Literally so strong. You are a literal rock star. That's my last piece of advice. Don't forget it. All right, guys, those are all of my tips for coping with labor pains. I really hope that this video was useful to you. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Tell me what your strategies are for dealing with labor pains, because I'm about to have this baby any minute now, and even though I've done it twice before, the thought of it is still a little bit daunting. It's hard not to psych yourself up in your head. So if you have any words of advice for me, leave them down in the comment section. I'd love to read it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.